Okay, so there was a little bit of confusion in my initial communications with the Alexis company about their resin. I had directly asked, can I use it on tumblers? The answer that came back to me was, it's for art projects. I don't consider a tumbler an art project. I consider a tumbler a tumbler. It's, you know, drinkware. So, and I've used epoxies that I thought were okay on tumblers previously, and then was told, ooh, you're not supposed to use that on tumblers. So, because at that point I was told, no, that's strictly for art projects. So it was a little bit of a confusion when the Amazon listing came up for this, because it was not up yet when I received this. It said it was safe for tumblers. So I messaged them back again and I said, there's a little bit of confusion. I was told it's only for art projects. Is it safe to use on tumblers? And they said, yes, you can absolutely use it on tumblers. It's been tested. It's safe. Go for it. So we are going to do my standard tumbler test for any new epoxy, which is always an alcohol ink rainbow. I do have another fast set I want to test with the alcohol inks, so that one I'm not going to do a rainbow since we're going to do a rainbow here and I don't want to do two back to back. So we are going to do the rainbow on the black base on this one. I am going to use this. I will say, this epoxy mixes beautifully. This is in its 2 to 3 minute rest after mixing, and it is basically crystal clear. However, alcohol inks generally don't like a very, very thin viscosity, runny resin. So I'm basically expecting a fail here. And going into this knowing that it is probably not going to work out. But I'm going to do it anyways because it is my test. I don't know what order any of these videos are going up that I'm using this on, because I have it going in several things right now. One I know is already up because it was the first one completed. But I did have an issue where I put it directly in a thin coat onto spray paint to glitter over. It did separate and create fisheyes there, which is why I am relatively certain I am going to have huge fisheyes on this one. But we're going to go with it. So we're going to use the T-Rex Alcohol Inks 12-piece starter set. I am going to go ahead and get gloves on. I am going to double up my gloves. I'm going to put my clear nitrile gloves on first, then my vinyl gloves over top. Okay, I am double gloved. I am double gloved so I can put the epoxy on and then have a set to use with the inks. So again, super thin. You're going to see. It's just going to run everywhere. And I will be very surprised if it doesn't separate before the inks even get to the cup. But we're going to roll with it and see what happens. Can you see? Those are all fisheyes opening up. Exactly what I expected to happen. So I'm going to work them back in, even though they're going to continue to open up. And they're already, some of them are getting bad in a hurry. But we're going to carry on anyways, because like I said, this is what we do. I try things so you can learn and see. I'm going to start dropping on my inks. You might not be able to see all the colors. I'm going to do just a thin band. This, because it's going to separate, is definitely going to have some black underneath show through. So I'm going to shake up the pearl really well I would have pre-shaken it, but I didn't realize I was going to use it. This is all where fish eyes are opening up. And that pink looks so hideous, but I promise as soon as a white gets on it, it should be fine. So, let's see if the color will come up through the pearl. The pearl might actually not be heavy enough, I'm not sure. So I may still have to grab the other white. It is picking up the color, but it's picking it up very lightly. So I do think we're going to go ahead and, it's pretty, but I do think we're going to grab the other white. Like I said, this is Let's Resin. And I only have a tiny bit left in this bottle, but it's the sinker white, the deeper white. And I left this bottle open last time I used it, so hopefully, yes, it will come out. Okay. Let me see how my bottom's doing. So I'm not going to manipulate this too much because those fish eyes are already opening up. I'm going to pick it up and tilt it a little bit, but I don't really want to put a lot of heat to it. I'm definitely not going to put any more ink on it at this point. It's interesting how the pearl kind of separated out and the pearl's just riding on top. So it almost looks like silver bands. This is how runny this is. It's literally just falling off already. So I'm just going to hold it down at an angle for a little bit. Let it move a little bit on its own. If it's going to. That blue is absolutely gorgeous though. I'm going to set it back down. It is spinning away from me. I'm going to turn it so the direction of spin is to me. I know it sounds ridiculous for me to say that out loud, but sometimes if I don't say it out loud, I will forget. And I'll sit there and flip the switch and then it'll end up being going back the same way. I'm sure you've seen that. I've caught it in editing and I'm like, yep. So I do have some fish eyes. They're not massive yet though. I suspect as this dries, they're going to open up further. And I may, I suspect if I put any heat to this, they will really crazy open up, so I'm not going to put any heat on it. I'm just going to walk away at this point, let it do its thing. When it's completely dry, we will come back in and have a look at it. I may in a couple spots, like the pink. I just put a little bit more of the epoxy on my hand, on my glove. And I'm just going to tap over the fish eyes. And just see if they'll maintain or if they'll open right back up. But I also don't want to add too much more epoxy because I don't want it to become lumpy. I'm going to let it be. I'm going to walk away. The next coat of epoxy will fill in any of the fish eyes. I'm just checking in on this about 15 minutes later. Huge separations. But we're going to let it continue. I mean, even the spaces that I tried to fill are broken back apart, so. Yeah, it's not beautiful. And I have this really weird lump where it's like just running around itself because it won't go back into those holes. So I'm actually going to pop you up on the stand because that I'm going to have to address, or this is going to be a super, super textured cup. So I'm going to grab a glove and we're just going to go in and blot some of this now that it's been spinning for a little bit. Because I can't have that. That will tick me off later. That right there was the worst of it. And I don't know if now that it's starting to thicken up a little bit more, it'll hold better, but we're gonna find out. So I may even come back in some of these other areas and just pat into the holes just to see. I am going to torch it real quick. It's probably going to open up fish eyes again, but I probably just introduced bubbles, so. I have problems. I can't leave things alone. This is where I go sideways in a hurry. So yes, I will definitely not be using this epoxy for alcohol ink tumblers in the future. I can already tell you that. For regular coats, I seem to like it. For glittering, I don't like it. But just standard coats over stuff that's already there, it seems to be fine. Okay, so this is how this looks dried. I did manage to fill most of the fish eyes. But I'm going to come in. I was going to do the Alexis epoxy again, but I don't think it's going to fill the fish eyes adequately. So I decided I'm just going to come in and finish this off with a regular, like, countertop thicker epoxy. It's very cold in my room, so it's very bubbly, but it'll be fine. So hopefully this resin is thick enough to fill in all the gaps and dry smooth. It should be. But I'm not totally unhappy with it, so that's good. It's a usable cup. I would probably put my decal down this side where the worst of it is. Although I feel like that's actually maybe a little worse. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Or maybe I'll come up with something that has more decals than just a single saying. But there you go. You can see the colors. I actually really did like the mix with the pearl for the white and the regular white. I think I will definitely do one like that again in the future with a different epoxy. So this concludes my Alexis test for alcohol inks. It's going to be a no for me on ink tumblers, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the epoxy. It just does not work for this technique because it's so thin. So let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next one.